Hello and welcome to The Price of Time, the show where we explore the defining moments that made people who they are today and the impact of those moments over time. Here's your host, Luke Tatum. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Price of Time. My name is Luke Tatum. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Susan St. Angelo. Susan is the owner of Susan St. Angelo Coaching, a business she started after going through burnout of her career, health, and marriage. As she put it, she became a health and life coach after needing one. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Luke. I'm happy to be here today.
Happy to have you. I'm going to very much look forward to this conversation and kind of get into all the details. You and I had a little bit of a pre-show where we kind of talked about just the very, very basic bare bones of where we might go with this. But for the most part, I have no idea what the details are, and I like to keep it that way, right? So this will be fun. But I mean, of course, we're going to start in maybe not so fun of a place. So you talking about burnout and those sorts of things. If you would just kind of tell me what is the one thing, the one transcendent defining moment that we're going to hone in on. We'll talk about life before, life after, all those things. But just tell us kind of what our focus is today.
Well, I read a book back in 1998, 99.
So it's been a minute.
It's been several minutes, yes. And it is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And the reason I bought the book was because I was a new manager. New banking center manager. I was running banking centers during that time. And my boss put in my review that he wanted me to entertain clients. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do this. This is totally out of my league. But he said, we have china, we have silverware, we have crystal, we have a conference room in the back room. I want you to start bringing people in. And so I bought this book because I needed to figure out a way to do this. And I was scared to death. And so after I read the book, I took out a blank piece of paper, and I wrote down all the people that I had met thus far. I was starting a brand new banking center from brick and mortar. And I put down all the people that I had met thus far that I had a connection to. And beside that, I wrote a little bit about what I knew about them, where they worked, something that I remembered. And then I took on the same sheet of paper, I wrote things you don't talk about. You don't talk about religion, politics, and sex. And so that's off the table. And so then I wrote about what I would talk about with these people. What I could always talk about the weather. Weather's a safe subject. I could talk about how the bank was started. It's a locally owned, privately owned bank, and I could tell that story till I was blue in the face. And so from there, I invited this person, my first person, to lunch. She was the executive director of a nonprofit. We had a lovely lunch, and at the end, she pulled out a check for a 5-figure check and said, I want to open a business account with you. And so my $20 investment in lunch, and then at the time, the book was probably, $15 bucks, that $35 helped me project, what a future I couldn't project. I mean, it was amazing. And I kept doing that over and over again. And it wasn't comfortable at first. It was very uncomfortable. And there were some really uncomfortable lunches and really uncomfortable people who just wanted to come and have lunch and not chat. And those were 20 minutes in and out. But for the most part, everyone loved them. And it really helped grow that banking center. And little did I find out until about a year after that we were in the black after 9 months. So it was something that really helped. And I started using the same techniques over and over in my life. When I would come across something fearful, I would use this book and what I'd learned to really say, okay, I can get through this fear. You can't avoid fear, but you can certainly work with it and find ways that are going to work for me. And so that's what I did.
Okay. Okay. Well, cool. So we'll get more into what else you've done with this kind of framework and with the lessons you learned from the book here as we go. But let's talk about before this, because obviously you had a lot of anxiety going into this new role, this new, um, let's say, was it a new role, a completely new job, or was it just a new aspect of the same job?
No, it was a different aspect of the same job. I had moved up the ladder very quickly, but this particular management job required a lot more publicity and being out in the public than I was comfortable with.
So you're like, "Oh, I didn't sign up for a PR job," right? I mean, basically, it kinda freaked you out a little bit, and I mean, rightfully so. I mean, I think that would be uncomfortable for probably the majority of people to say, "Hey, start hosting these business lunches and all that." So, what about, I guess I guess maybe the month or 2 before you read this book and everything, was that even on your radar? I mean, what was the time frame here? Were you like, this is what you're gonna do, then you bought the book the next day? Or was it like, okay, okay. But yeah, tell me about that.
No, I know that that didn't happen. I probably sweated, my palms probably sweated for weeks. I probably thought of all the reasons I couldn't do it. I probably talked myself out of my job. I probably figured every single way that I couldn't do it until I finally said, wait, I love to read. I love books. Let's just go to the bookstore and see what they have. And this jumped out at me. I mean, it's a cover that really is loud and bright, and you just can't run from it. And the title itself is perfect. Um,
No, that's great. And so, I guess rewinding even a little further, I mean, what kind of work had you done prior to that? You said you kinda climbed the ladder, I guess within the same place. So is this something that, I mean, I don't know. I've talked to people before that say, "Oh, I'd love to just get paid and not ever have to interact with anybody." You know what I mean? Like they don't want to have a job that's public facing in any way. So is it that public speaking or this sort of engagement, anything like that, completely terrified you, or was it like I can tolerate it, but only in small doses? Or I mean, kind of where were you at?
Yeah, well, little did I know until many years later, but I'm an introvert. And so I recharge my batteries by being alone. But yet, when you're in a banking center, and I started with another bank, I was a teller. We were starting the supermarket concept in northern Indiana. And 4 months into it, they pulled me aside and said, hey, you remember those tests we took when you onboarded? Well, you scored really high in management. And we've talked to your peers, and we think you'd be a great assistant manager as we grow. And so, 4 months in, I'm now a manager. I was an assistant manager, and within the year, I became a manager. And I was all of 24, maybe 25, so pretty young. And then I subsequently moved back to my hometown of Indianapolis, and literally fell into this opportunity to start a banking center. So I was comfortable in my role and playing a role and being out there when I needed to be, but I literally needed to recharge when I came home. And I grew up around a lot of extroverts, so I was very comfortable being behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, fair enough. I mean, and I'd like to say I was the most introverted person you'll ever meet. I mean, at one point in my life, really, really, really shy as a kid, and it took me a lot of very focused, very methodical, working on myself to get. I mean, I if 10-year-old me thought, "Oh, you're gonna be on video calls all the time, and you're gonna be doing all these things." I was like, "No way, no how, I'm gonna be some kind of book smart thing where I can just lock myself in a closet and read books or whatever." And so, it can be done, but it takes effort. And so,
It does take a lot of effort, and I will say that one of my newer friends who didn't know my backstory, She said, "You are the most extroverted introvert I know." and and I can now, I mean, I'm never going to be an extrovert, but I certainly know how to socialize and meet people for coffee and take people out to dinner and take people to the symphony and those type of things now. It really has come around after a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, and so, I mean, obviously, it's a positive change, right? You'd say it's on net a very positive thing. Uh, can you get into maybe what the framework is or what the mechanism is that you're using whenever you know, let's say, implemented the teachings of this book? Is it a multiple steps that you go through every time you have a fear-based situation, or is it just a mindset shift, or what kind of a thing are we dealing with here?
That's a great question. Yeah, yes, I would say it is a mindset. You have to be in a mindset instead of a fixed mindset. You have to be in a growth mindset. You have to want to make that change, and in order to do that, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And that might mean taking some baby steps. It's no different than changing your lifestyle or anything else. It requires some thought, but it requires you to put in the effort too. And the more effort you put in, I believe the better the outcome. So for me, I think the first step is saying, okay, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of failure? Am I afraid of success? Am I afraid that I won't be good at what I'm doing? And people will laugh at me. I mean, it could be any of those and all those things. And then once I determine that, then I can create a roadmap. And really, it's nothing more than really a business plan. I've done that several times. It's like a business plan for what you need to do to move out of that comfort zone. And you just have to say, I've got this. I can do this. It's positive self talk, which sometimes for people that can be really hard, telling yourself, you've got this. Because we've all been told, hey, you can't do this, imposter syndrome, whatever it is. We want to believe the worst when really we ought to be turning it around and saying, you can do this and you can take the next right step and you can succeed if you want it. If you don't want it, then stop right here. But but a lot of it is, yeah, taking those steps, creating a plan, working the plan, and feeling those feelings, whatever that is. If that's anxiety, being uncomfortable in that initial situation, maybe it's going solo to a business development event and you don't know anybody. I've done that several times, and just sitting in that uncomfortableness, it eventually goes away. Eventually, you connect with someone. Eventually, it gets better. What happens today may not be what happens a week from now and a year from now. And I'm here to say that because I'm proof positive that that has happened to me. So,
Right, sure. I mean, absolutely, and so it's a process, and it's a process that builds upon itself, right? And so if I can maybe summarize, it sounds like step 1 is to really lock in on how you are feeling, because generalized fear is a completely different thing, like you said, than fear of success or fear of failure or fear of having to interact with someone more if you get promoted, or whatever crazy situation it could be. You've got to understand why you're experiencing this fear, because it's not just you aren't just afraid, you're afraid of something. And so there's components that you need to isolate and kind of consider so that you can build a plan, right? Because if you know what it is, you know how you can move forward, right? So there's a course that I took once upon a time from the Pacific Institute, and something I recommend to my team all the time. Sign up for a course with the Pacific Institute. They teach you how to really take ownership of your self-talk. And so, when you bring up self-talk, I mean, to me, that's the single most important thing. It's how you talk to yourself. Because if you're telling yourself messages that are going to harm your mindset, or tear you down, then you're never going to make progress on anything. And so, those kind of lessons are, from my experience, a different angle. I haven't read the book that you've read, but from my angle, very, very powerful, important stuff. And so, I'm very much on the same page, I would say.
Oh, well, that's good. Now, you know what's really interesting about this book? It was copyrighted in 1997 and it's relevant today. So, all the things she was talking about have withstood the test of time and they're just as important now. I mean, the self talk, she talks about that. She talks about building confidence through the repetition, confronting your fears. Now, we've heard this in other forms and other people. So,
Yeah, and finding the right avenue that resonates with you personally, your background, your experiences can be tricky because certainly, I mean, that Pacific Institute course, yeah, I'd heard people talk about positive self-talk before, but I didn't get it until I took that course, and I was like, wow, I, I am I am locked in. I understand. I get it. I'm going to make some positive changes. And so, it sounds like for you, this book was the path. The path that you needed, the time that you needed it, and it opened a lot of doors. So let's shift then and kind of talk about that. So, what kind of things? And I know you succeeded in your role and your new capacity at your job, but you were alluding to some other things that kind of happened or that you can apply this to. So, what else? I mean, what happened after that, I guess?
oh yeah, wow, that's a loaded question. So actually, I had the best 4.5 years of my banking career during that time of building a banking center, and not wanting to be in the spotlight, but it just happened. But I couldn't have done that without a team of people. And we just got along so beautifully and operated so smoothly. And it was fun coming to work. And so I had an opportunity to move out of Indianapolis to do something else. And I say they caught me at the right day or the wrong day, depends on how you look at it. But they caught me at a point where I said, okay, let's do this. And so I moved away and I walked away from, the next step in my career. Well, it didn't work out. I had to go and do something totally different. I used the same principles to do that. I was doing some fundraising across the country, so I had to learn how to travel by myself and do all those things that you do when you travel: book the hotel, book the airline, book the car, make the appointments. And it was a really great experience. And I love to travel. And I think that that's what led me to my love of travel. But I also know that when I came back, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go back into banking. And so I stayed with the fundraising path. And I eventually came back to my dream job with the same bank. They said, well, Susan, there's a place for you. There's a chair for you. And I said, oh, no, I think the door's shut. And he said, no, this was the president of the bank. And he said, no, the door's still open. And within a month, I was back at the bank in a brand new role that they had created with 0 clients, building a portfolio of high net worth clients. I became a private banker. And I did that for 10 years during the recession. And again, they were high on customer service, high touch, entertaining. Entertaining wasn't in the banking center this time. Entertaining included symphony, sporting events, nonprofit events, going out to dinner with clients. And so again, I became good at that again. I mean, it was like riding a bike. You just, you just learn how to do it again. But it was very comfortable, and I'd like to think I became one of the better private bankers who utilized that skill, and it didn't bother me at all, and I think it contributed to my success. That was along the time of the recession. So we had a lot of, loans that were challenging, a lot of clients who were challenging. Even personally, I think a lot of people had just a lot of angst at the time. Well, I didn't realize it, but I really was burning out. And so I began working with a coach, a life coach, and we made a plan for me to leave. It was a year plan, and I knew, I either was going to try to find another role within the bank or I was going to have to leave. And all the other roles in the bank were similar to the one I had. And I really, I just couldn't do it anymore. Like my mind, body, and spirit were just sort of tapped out. So I made the plan, worked with my coach, and I left a few days prior to my 50th birthday. Um, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had some health issues and I wasn't paying attention to my marriage, and I had problems with that as well. So, yes, there was a fear of leaving, um, but I knew I needed to go. Again, I crafted the plan, I crafted a business plan. I could anticipate for just about everything. I mean, I was so good down to every detail. The one thing I couldn't plan on was, uh, this is really odd, but I was very lonely. I mean, even as an introvert, I was lonely. I was used to a certain amount of people contact. And I think when you decide to go off on your own and do something like that, you think, oh, I'm going to love all this solitude. Well, I didn't love all that solitude. And I know I'm not the only one who said that, um, but I think I was also home to see things in my marriage. And so I was starting to have some health issues. And so I went to to a new doctor who said, you've got this, this, and this. And I mean, my gosh, I was so tearful. I mean, I was in tears. I thought finally someone has found what I needed, what was going on. But through that process, she said, things aren't going to change at home. You're going to have to change. And so I left my then husband when I still loved him. And that was excruciatingly hard. I was close to his children. We have grandchildren. There were so many good things about that relationship. So I took a pause. We separated. And I was hoping to get healthy. And my health did not really improve until after the divorce. And so, but again, that was another thing where I had to feel the fear and do it anyway and live in that spot where I didn't know what was going to happen next. I had to surround myself with a support team, with people who were Team Susan, and get myself healthy so that my mind was clear enough to make a good decision about my marriage. And once I did, I opted to leave while I was still in love with my husband. I still loved him, and it was hard. It was really one of the hardest things I think I've ever done. Uh, we we will have been divorced 5 years this coming July, and yeah, I can't believe it's gone by so fast. But yet, I really am grateful for this time to get to know myself again and to get healthy. Um, and again, I've gone through some other situations, excuse me, that have been challenging. I've moved to a different state and started over. And I knew my realtor and I knew a neighbor or two. And so again, I put that practice of putting a business plan together of what do I want to learn while I'm here? What types of things do I want to do on my free time? But I also put together my business plan for my coaching business as well. So, I mean, I came in with a plan and I was going to bound and determined get over this fear. And it was so funny because last summer I met a woman and I told her, I said, "Oh, I'm very comfortable going to a restaurant by myself and sitting at a bar. I mean, now I can converse with people left or right. If they want to chat, I can do that." And she said, "I would never be comfortable. That would scare me to death." And it doesn't bother me. I mean, again, and I think it all goes back to my banking center days and this book.
Do you still feel the fear? I mean, if you're talking about, say, as an example, going to a bar by yourself, that kind of thing, like, would that still terrify you? It's just you're okay with that? Or is it just that you're good now? You're moved past the fear part?
I think it depends on the situation. I think um, there's low grade fear and there's really terrifying fear. You know, I've traveled abroad by myself. That's kind of higher. That's higher level fear in my book. Um, just because it's not as comfortable. There's language barriers. There's a lot of unpredictability with with the airlines, with just about anything going on in any country now. So, but yes, for the most part, I'm pretty comfortable going into situations. I can feel the little heart palpitation or the sweaty palms, but that's okay. I think that's a sign I'm alive. I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we correlate that as a bad thing.
Right. Now, and it again goes back to my own experience, not having, lived your life, not having gone through these same steps, but I am still not comfortable having some video calls and like doing some public speaking and things like that. I mean, I record YouTube videos every week now, but I sometimes, depending on what it is, who I'm talking to, some of the context, like I may just be like sweating, the whole time. It may really like physiologically, give me a hard time, and I just kind of like, okay, camera's on, get over it. And so it's good. It works out. It's not comfortable, but it gets better. And I mean, I told you before in our pre-show, I believe that I had an old podcast back in like 2016, and I just had to tell myself, look, your first podcast episode is going to be the absolute worst one. So you get that one over with. And then the second one will be a little easier, So it's going to be a little better, and you just kind of learn as you go. And so that's how I did it. Is just to say it can't get any worse than today. Today's the first, so it's got to be the worst. But
And I believe that that is a good way for you to tell yourself to keep moving forward. This is the worst it's going to be, and it's going to get better from here on out. And you made me think of something I haven't thought of in years. And I think there was a commercial that said, "Never let them see you sweat."
oh, okay, okay,
And I used to tell my staff that, I said, we can have a bad experience or someone can get under our skin, but never let them see you sweat. Always maintain that composure. And if you need to come to the back break room and cry or yell or do what you need to do, do that. But we are forward, client forward positions, and we have to be professional and we represent bank. So I've never forgotten that. I guess I hadn't thought about it in a while, but it still applies.
I mean, in my own background, I was in a kind of a higher net worth targeted furniture environment. And, I was in customer service for a while. I was in some management roles at different times. I was with them for 7 years and some change. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like you get off the phone and you go, and just have to decompress and just turn off your professional mode a little bit and kind of like let it out a bit. It was some rough days, every now and again doing that, and especially for some of the people on my team at different stages there. So I hear exactly what you're saying. It's not, again, not exactly the same, but there's a lot of commonality, a lot of things that I definitely hear loud and clear, about what you're saying. So if I can, I want to maybe jump ahead. I don't know how far I'm jumping, so that's maybe the beginning of my question. But you started your own coaching business. And so when did that happen, and what has that been like? And so that was leaving the bank. I assume that's you left the bank to start your coaching business. Is that correct or no? Okay, okay. Then fill in the gaps because I'm getting it wrong.
No, no, no. That's okay. I didn't know what I was going to do when I left the bank. I just knew I needed to go, you know. And so I did what I call a soft landing. I opened my own financial services business, and it's called Daily Money Manager. And it was a fairly new title. However, people wanted to box me in and call me a bookkeeper. And the role was to go in and help people who either didn't have family members close by or they had no family, and they needed a little assistance, whether they needed help paying bills or automating payments or going through mail. Um, I strictly wanted to stay with the financial part that I knew. And I was hearing this from my old role. They say, hey, do you know someone who does this type of thing? And the only person I knew was someone who really wasn't detail oriented, and she was great with clients, but I thought if she can do it, I can do it 10 times better,
Yep,
which I did.
I hear you.
But what I found with that, it was a fairly new concept, and now people are going, "Hey, I think it's a great idea." Well, I'm always kind of one step ahead, and seeing things that others don't quite see yet as potential. And I see this group of people who really need some assistance. But I think the public sees it as you're taking advantage of elderly people, which I'm not. But and so I was attracting, instead of determining my niche, I let it determine me, And so my niche became older people, many who had some mental health issues, dementia, and I think I was a nice dumping ground, for lack of a better word. And it was really taxing. It was taxing emotionally on me. And so I just kept hanging on and hanging on. Well, eventually, again, I needed to get healthy. And I had received all the news that I needed a few years ago, 8 years ago, on what I needed to do. But I wasn't honest with myself. And until I got honest with myself, I wasn't going to make any changes. And so I was at wit's end when I was in to see my doctor. I said, I'm doing all this cardio, I'm skipping meals, what am I doing wrong? And she said, well, maybe you should talk to a health coach. We have someone that we can recommend. And I said, I'll do it. Just, whatever. And so when I spoke to her, she said, well, on a scale of, 0 to 100%, where are you in terms of doing this? What's your commitment? And I said, I'm 100%. I will give up all those things that aren't good for me. And once I got honest, I eventually lost almost 40 pounds. I've kept it off. And a couple of years ago, I started my coaching business. She said, man, you are the best student. She said, I was a dog with a bone. You give me a goal, I was knocking it out of the park. But I did. I changed my lifestyle issues. Well, let's just say I didn't change my lifestyle issues. I changed my lifestyle, and the issues I had, I no longer have. And so to me, as I tell my clients, it's taking small steps that make big differences. And for me, I had to, do those little things, and they just kept showing up as really positive. And so I went through class to become a health coach. I opened my own coaching business. I love working with people who are motivated and really are committed to making changes. And you have to find that person. That doesn't come around every day. But you can also, I come from it because I've been through burnout. of my career, my health, and my marriage. And I'm on the other side of all three. Um, and I will tell people that your new life will cost you your old life.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. You wanna make big changes, you've gotta make big changes. It's like, it's a kind of a truism, in a way. But yeah, I mean, this is and it's all from this book, right? I mean, basically, this is all kind of come from your decision way back then to pick up this book and and embrace that, actually do what's in the book because anybody can read a book, but it's a rare person, who will go, "Oh, okay, I think I'll implement this and actually make changes." And it's so funny you mentioned that here just a moment ago because, you know, that's what we do too. I mean, we're financial services, we do life insurance, we do all these things. We're in the infinite banking world is what we do. And it's somebody who's got the right level of motivation that they're ready to find the knowledge they need and to do something. Those are the people you want. People who are just kind of casually browsing around and scrolling social media or whatever. It's fine. I don't want to talk to them because you want somebody to actually follow through and actually see the positive impact of something. That's I'm a teacher, by nature, and so I wanna teach people who wanna learn, I don't wanna teach people who don't, and that's why I'm not in education, like, as a K through 12 educator or something like that, because half the people are gonna not care what you're doing, and so, yeah, I definitely feel that. Now, what if you hadn't read the book, though? Can I turn the tables on you and say, what if you hadn't found that? What if it hadn't caught your eye and just would you have quit that job and just said, "I this is too much for me, I'm out," or what?
I don't think so. I I have to believe in the mission of where I'm working, and I believed it. I mean, it was in my blood. I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and I was drinking it till, really till I left. And I still love the place, and I would encourage people to bank there. But I guess I don't know what would have happened. Um, I probably wouldn't have known to put a plan in place. I probably would have been haphazard about when and how I did this. I know that my performance review was based on it, so it may have affected my income and my bonuses that were, a bonus is a sign that you're doing the right things. Um, I wouldn't have become an assistant vice president and then a vice president. And I'll tell you, the assistant vice president meant more to me than the vice president did. It was like, oh yeah, it was like I worked for this. I really see the fruits of my labors to get this title because it was more than just a title. It included some stock options, and you're in a new level, of esteem, so to speak. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have had any of that.
Well, I mean, maybe you would have been struggling with burnout after a while, just of a different kind, of being stuck and unable to get the next level, that kind of thing. So, there's all kinds of burnout.
Well, there is, and truthfully, I've experienced stuck in many ways. Even now, I mean, there's certain things that I do feel stuck, and I don't like that feeling of being stuck. Like, how can I move out of it, or what do I need to do to get out of it? And sometimes it's sitting in a gray area that's not terribly comfortable. You know, it, I know I need to get out of my comfort zone. So it's just how do I do that? So I think it's again goes back to you're never going to not have fear. It's just how you deal with it and how you work through it with the self talk and having a support system and, you know, relying on your confidence and composing your business plan or whatever plan of action it is, and taking another step, taking that next right step.
Sure, sure. No, I love it. And real quickly, sidebar, I don't know if you're hearing our roosters, they're going crazy outside, but we will do what we can to control the amount of crowing in the recording. So, it's just a thing. But let's go forward back to the more the present. Okay, so Susan, you've got your coaching platform, your coaching business, I should say, and you're working with clients. And are you just happier than you've ever been? I mean, loving every minute of it and getting to work with cool and interesting people, or I mean, what's your life like today, I guess is the question.
Well, life today is different. I have moved out of state, so I my network of people, including family and friends, are back in Indiana, and I am in Southwest Michigan. And so that was challenging and still is. I've only been gone about a year. Um, so there is some loneliness and some, am I sure I'm in the right place? And I haven't yet made that determination whether I am or I'm not. Um, I also am becoming a breathwork facilitator. I'm in the process of doing that as an offering to my coaching. I'm seeing a number of people. Today's world is very different and challenging. A lot of unsettlement. Um, People are anxious. They don't know how to calm their mind and their nervous system, and they need clarity. And I think people have been busy so much that they don't know how to quiet. And so breathwork provides that tool to help connect with the mind and body. And so I'm in the final stages of becoming a breathwork facilitator to help people who want to learn how to work with breathwork to calm their own nervous systems. So that's good. I'm of the clients I'm working with, I'm passionate about them. They're doing the work. I'm not doing the work. I'm just here to provide accountability and a sounding board. And I love it when I see them making aha moments and things that, they've known all along that just became clear to them. Um, I, I, I have to say my clients become friends. That's true of my banking career, and that's true now. We just build these nice relationships, and I love that too. I'd love to be busier. I would like to see where this coaching takes me, whether it takes me into the podcast realm or into some other avenue. We'll see.
Sure, sure. It's interesting you mentioned breath work, and of course, I know what that is. The guy who wrote the introduction for my book, his name is Luis, and he is also a breathwork facilitator. He's done that. He does multiple other things, leadership coaching, and all kinds of interesting stuff. But he does breath work, and I learned a lot from him because of his involvement with that. But if you don't mind, I mean, just for someone who might be listening and has no idea what that is, I mean, what is breath work? So you know it's breathing, but I mean, do I have to work at it? I don't know.
Well, I always tell people, you are breathing, but during, let's say, 30 minutes, of which 10 minutes you're actually going to breathe in a breath pattern or two. And there's all sorts of different breath patterns out there, but the ones that I know and I'm most comfortable with go from, what they call a halo active breath, which is in through the nose and out through the mouth, to more activating, depending on what the client might be interested in. But I always recommend this halo active breath for beginners because it's gentle and you can control the pace and the intensity of breath work. And it's always up to the breather to choose what they want to do. It's not my choice. I just cue them and give them opportunities and also give them some visualization. If if they can quiet their mind enough to get out of whatever headspace they're in, 8 to 10 minutes of breath work can make a huge shift in how they feel afterwards. They may have come in under one set of circumstances and they go away feeling much calmer, more clear. Maybe something appears during that time. And so, it's guided with music if they want it, or we can work with silence. And I do it virtually. I am going to have my first group breathwork session coming up in about 10 days, and I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm not uncomfortable being in front of a group of people, but certainly these are some new skills I'm learning. So that'll be interesting.
In a new capacity for sure, right? Yeah, that's
sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, if someone was interested in reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I could use some coaching," I mean, who do you look for? Where should they go? If you'll just tell me kind of, your website, your process, those kind of things.
Well, I'd probably first direct them to my email address, susan@creatingnewjoy.com. And there we can schedule a 30-minute call just to see if we're a good fit. If we, they can tell me a little bit about what they're going through, what they've experienced, and see if it's a good fit for us to work together. And then we can work through the process of getting them onboarded. And I offer a package right now of 7 sessions, and they're all an hour long, except for the first one, which is longer. And, we don't space them out too terribly long. I don't want there to be a lot of time in between that people lose that momentum. And I'm also offering a summer tune-up. So that's 3 sessions. So that's about half the time commitment and half of the much lower price. So that would be the best way to reach me is via email right now.
Perfect. All right. We'll be sure to put that in the description below the video and anywhere else that the podcast goes. With your permission, we'll just put that in the text there for people to easily do that. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about today on the show?
Well, that's a loaded question. Goodness.
I'm known for loaded questions. I apologize.
Oh, no, this has been wonderful. It's brought back a lot of memories, positive ones, and a few not so that I'm better able to handle. So thank you for that. I would say, I would say you can make changes in your life no matter the age. And you just have to get beyond that initial fear. And if, you can tell yourself, I can do this, reach out to me. Maybe I can help you put together a plan and talk you through it. And, I want to be a helper in this world, not someone who's critical. And I'm not that person anyway. So, but I just know that people will say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm too old to do that. Oh, I'm too this. I'm too that." Not true. You can do this at any age. Age is a number.
Sure. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I will put your email in the description box. I'll also put a link to the book, "Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway." Is that the name? Okay,
by Susan Jeffers.
Susan Jeffers. Okay, perfect. So we'll get a link for that, put it in the description as well for anyone who wants to check that out. Susan, I very much appreciate your time today, and thank you all for tuning in to The Price of Time. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to The Price of Time, hosted by Luke Tatum. Subscribe to us for more episodes. Check the description box below to learn more about our guest. And if you found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend.